Umar ibn Abd al Aziz, the Caliph who revived the soul of the Umayyads. Sometimes empires don't collapse with a roar, they fade quietly, sinking into the comfort of their own grandeur. When al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik passed away in 715 CE, the Umayyad Empire stood at its zenith. From Spain to the borders of India, the world lay beneath the banner of Islam. The deserts of Arabia had birthed a civilization of marble palaces, mighty armies, and glittering mosques. But beneath the splendor, something vital had begun to fade. That simple spirit of the early Muslims, the humility, the justice, the awe before God. The empire was rich, yes, but faith was growing weary. And into this age of quiet decay stepped a man who would remind the world what true leadership meant. A man remembered as the Second Umar. His name was Umar ibn Abd al Aziz. The Empire. After al-Walid's grand projects, his conquests, his mosques, his monumental works, his brother Sulayman ibn Abd al-Malik took the throne. Sulayman was no tyrant, but neither was he a reformer. He inherited an empire flush with wealth and victory, but also with vanity. The court at Damascus had grown luxurious. Silks, perfumes, banquets that lasted for hours. Governors were powerful, often unaccountable, and the Caliphate's moral authority was slipping little by little. Sulayman's reign would be short, but in his final days, he made one decision that would change Islamic history. As he lay dying in the year 717 CE, he refused to hand power to his own sons. Instead, he appointed his cousin, a man known for his piety, his scholarship, and his humility. When the news spread, people were stunned. Umar ibn Abd al Aziz, they whispered, the scholar, the ascetic, and so began one of the most extraordinary reigns in the history of Islam. The reluctant Caliph. When Umar was told that Sulayman had chosen him, he wept. He is said to have whispered, "By Allah, I did not seek it. It has been thrust upon me." He was not a man of ambition. He was a man of conscience. Before his rule, he had served as the governor of Medina, where even his critics admitted his fairness. He was gentle but firm, humble yet decisive. The people of Medina loved him because he resembled the caliphs of old, not in grandeur but in righteousness. So when he became caliph, he brought that same spirit to Damascus. On the day of his coronation, the palace attendants approached with the traditional ceremonial robes, rich silk embroidered with gold. Umar looked at them and said softly, "Take them away. Bring me my own clothes. I am not above the people. I am one of them." He rode not in a grand procession but on a simple mule. The people of Damascus looked on in astonishment. They had never seen such humility in a ruler. A caliph who refused power's comforts. The first thing Umar ibn Abd al Aziz did was to send away the palace guards. "If I cannot be safe without them," he said, "then I am not fit to rule." He dismissed the extravagant cooks and servants who had become part of the Umayyad court. The golden cups were replaced by clay ones. The luxurious furnishings were sent away. Even the lights in his chamber were dim. There is a famous story that captures his spirit. One night, a man came to discuss state affairs with him. As they spoke, Umar's lamp flickered and went out. The man offered to fix it, but Umar refused. He got up by himself, refilled it with oil, and sat back down. The man said, "Commander of the faithful, you are the ruler. Why did you not ask me to do it for you?" Umar replied, "It was my oil, not the state's, and it would be unjust for me to use public property for a personal matter." That was Umar ibn Abd al Aziz, a man who saw even a drop of oil as a matter of accountability before God. The moral revolution. Umar's reforms were swift and sweeping. He began by cutting the enormous stipends and privileges that the Umayyad princes had enjoyed for years. His relatives complained bitterly. One of his cousins protested, "Do you not fear that you will anger your family?" Umar replied, "I fear only to anger Allah." He returned vast lands and properties that the Umayyads had seized unjustly. He declared, "What was taken without right must be restored to its people." And he did not stop there. He reformed taxation to ensure that no one, Muslim or non-Muslim, was treated unjustly. He abolished unfair levies on non-Arab converts to Islam, declaring that all Muslims were equal before God, regardless of race or lineage. For the first time in decades, new converts felt welcomed, not as taxpayers, but as brothers in faith. It was a revolution not of swords, but of conscience. Governance and justice. Umar also restructured governance itself. He replaced corrupt governors with pious, competent men. His instructions to them were simple and profound. Rule as if every decision will be judged by God himself. When one governor wrote to him asking for advice on how to conduct his duties, Umar's reply was short. Do not strike the Muslims lest you dishonor them. Do not wrong them lest you ruin them. Do not neglect them lest they forget you. He ordered that prisoners be treated humanely, that debts of the poor be forgiven, that roads and wells be maintained, and that the widows and orphans be given allowances from the treasury. The state under Umar became something new, not an instrument of dominance but a guardian of justice. Economic justice and prosperity. His reforms soon began to show miraculous results. Taxes became fair, corruption declined, and people began to trust the government again. Within just 2 years, the economy transformed so dramatically that some reports say the zakat collectors could not find anyone poor enough to accept charity in parts of North Africa. Umar's idea of prosperity was not wealth. It was equality, fairness, and dignity. He once said, "True wealth is not what fills the hand, but what fills the soul." Even the treasury's gold meant little to him. When he died, the state treasury was richer than before, not because he hoarded wealth, but because he spent it wisely. The personal struggle of a saintly caliph. For all his justice and glory, Umar's life was one of personal sacrifice. He had married Fatima, the daughter of the former Caliph Abd al-Malik. She was one of the wealthiest women of her time, possessing exquisite jewels and fine estates. When Umar became caliph, he told her gently, "You know that our life of luxury must now end." Without hesitation, she handed over her jewels to the state treasury. It was said that she never wore them again. At night, Umar would stand in prayer until his legs trembled. He would cry for the burdens of his office. "Every poor person," he once said, "who goes hungry tonight, I fear his complaint will be against me before God." This sense of responsibility broke his health. He slept little, ate little, and carried the weight of an empire on his heart. Letters of justice. Umar's letters to his governors became legendary. They were short, powerful, and filled with faith. To one official he wrote, "Do not strike the people with your hands or your words. Speak gently, for harshness does not befit a believer." To another he said, "Beware of arrogance, for it is the companion of the oppressor. And remember, the people's patience will end before God's punishment does." He even sent letters to non-Muslim subjects, assuring them of protection and fairness. To one Christian leader he wrote, "You have the same rights and duties as the Muslims. No one shall wrong you so long as I live." Such was his justice that even those outside Islam prayed for his long life. The short reign, the eternal light. Umar ibn Abd al Aziz ruled for only 2.5 years, but in that short time, he did what most rulers could not do in decades. He revived the spirit of Islam itself. He showed that a caliph could be both powerful and humble, both ruler and servant. But his reforms, unsurprisingly, made many in the Umayyad elite uneasy. The powerful princes whose privileges he had curtailed began to conspire against him. He was poisoned in the year 720 CE at the age of only 39. As he lay dying, his wife Fatima sat beside him weeping. He said to her with a calm smile, "Do not weep, Fatima. I see a mercy before me that no eye has seen, no ear has heard." He passed away in the quiet of the night, a man who had restored faith to power. Legacy of the Second Umar. After his death, the empire mourned as if it had lost its conscience. The poor, the widows, the orphans, all wept for the man who had remembered them. Even his enemies spoke of him with reverence. Historians across centuries have called him the fifth rightly guided caliph. The Abbasids, who later overthrew the Umayyads, would still honor his name. Even the harshest critics of the dynasty admitted Umar ibn Abd al Aziz was different. He was not a warrior or a conqueror. He was a reformer, a purifier. He reminded the world that the strength of a caliphate was not in its armies, but in its justice. A glimmer of faith in an age of power. In an age when the Umayyad Empire had reached its worldly height, Umar reminded everyone of its spiritual roots. He made the caliphate feel once again like the days of Abu Bakr, and Umar ibn al-Khattab, an age of faith, simplicity, and moral purpose. His brief rule was like the sunrise after a long night, warm, fleeting, unforgettable. When people remember him today, they don't speak of his conquests or buildings, but of his heart. He was a caliph who could have had everything, and chose instead to live as if he had nothing but God. "The world has known kings and emperors," wrote one early historian, "but few who ever ruled themselves as Umar ruled his soul." And that perhaps Usasul is his greatest legacy. Because empires rise and fall, but justice and faith are eternal. I wish I lived during his era. What about you? If you are enjoying the fascinating series on the Islamic empires, please subscribe, like and share the video, and see you in the next episode.